Thanks for checking in on the State of Basketball Podcast, episode 83. I'm Adam Miller, and I'm here with Jaren Wilt each and every week, and we are going to be bringing you the news and notes on all 11 Division I schools in the state of Indiana, because in 49 states,
it's just basketball. You just lied.
Why?
You said all 11. We're not talking about all 11 today.
And every time, you know what you're going to find out about me, Jaren, is I'm a liar sometimes. When the need is there, I will lie, or for fun. So it's up to you to pick out which one it is. But we are having another recurring guest. Last week we had a second-time guest. This time we've got a guest making their second appearance on the show, right? Second?
Yes.
Yeah, I think last time.
Yeah, we tried to do it during the season, and I'm not smart enough technologically to figure out how to make that work during the season. But I figured it out.
That was less second season in season. That might be a third season type of deal. Could happen.
We have the infrastructure now.
Maybe Southern Indiana knocks off Power 5 school first game of the season next year. Close last year. Maybe make it happen. Maybe we do a live call afterwards. Who knows? Who knows what the future holds? But who do we have, Jaren?
A friend of ours.
We gotta make sure we gotta ask him. Make sure we can tell him that.
Hopefully, a friend of the show.
Okay.
I think that's pretty confident because he's been pretty welcoming to the show. Coach John Spruance of Southern Indiana. He had him on last off season, and he was gracious enough to allow us to come down and catch a game and
sweet
give us a tour of Liberty Arena. So. Yeah, excited to have him on.
Should we get to it?
Yeah, let's bring him in.
Coach Spru, how's it going?
What's going on, fellas? What's going on? Hey, we can be friends. That's fine. We can be friends.
We were worried. We were worried because
no, clearly you were worried.
Well, I figure we're going out to eat and at Tironi's.
He did stand us up.
Get this at Tironi's, and you're like, I can't be there. I'm not gonna say why you couldn't be there. Your excuse is legitimate, but you did turn us down for dinner.
Excused absence.
It was. We'll give it a pass this time.
Everybody gets one.
Yeah, we'll make it happen when you guys come back. We'll make it happen.
All right. So we got to see the Screagles twice last year, up in Fort Wayne and then once in Evansville.
Yeah.
One worse than the other, I think.
Yeah, I tried to forget the Fort Wayne one, as I'm sure Coach Sprue you did as well. But
hey man, there were some moments from I can't remember who it was.
Jared Washington.
Jared Washington, yeah, came in off the bench just like he was Kyrie or something.
And then just Rashid and all those guys just kept doing what they do, man.
Yep. They're a machine. But we're glad to have you back. We are for our audience, you are coach at Southern Indiana. I don't know what your official title is. You
still just a coach, man, just assistant coach. You know what I mean?
I'm gonna email somebody in the program, be like, can you update his thing?
We gotta get a title change. Yeah, we gotta get a title change over here. You know what I mean?
You heard it here, folks.
Right? Pushing for it.
You know what? If you need a recommendation, we got you.
You guys are my rec. You guys are my NIL money guys, and my Tironi plug. So beers and pizza will be on you guys.
There we go. Beer, singular. Come on now, just one.
But if you get a pitcher at Tironi's, that can count as one as well.
True. Yeah. So that's a good. See, we're all about loopholes here. All about loopholes. But we just kind of wanted to bring you on, talk about, some things like what it's like being a coach in a conference like the Ohio Valley, what it's like being at Southern Indiana, and, just various things, because I think people always talk about college basketball, right? They're talking about, these Power 5 schools, and then, they always want to say like, oh, well, players are just jumping to, from lower divisions up to higher divisions when they produce. So like, what is it like being at a school like Southern Indiana in a program or in a conference like the Ohio Valley? Because I feel like a lot of people don't understand it. They're unless they love like a small team like that,
Yeah.
they're only thinking about, what Notre Dame or what Purdue are doing, and not the littler guys like you.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard. I mean, we're a stepping stone. I think we're the new JUCO because we can give guys a little bit more money than that level, and obviously give them that exposure. But it's tough, man. It's a really hard thing from us going, D2 guys where we're so accustomed to having those dudes for 4 years, and Jack Milkey leaves this year. Like, we might never have a 4-year kid again. Like, he might be the last kid that we ever coach that's a 4-year guy that stays with it, that trusts the process with it, and just kind of sticks it out and sees it through. So it's hard. It's hard to develop, and I think for me especially, it's really hard with who I am as a person and who I want to be, for our players, and I want to invest in them, and I want to be there for them, and I want them to, think of me as family, and they'll be over here with my wife, my son, and then at the end of the year, it's like, hey man, like, I'm leaving, I love you. It's like, oh, well, awesome. Here I am,
Yeah, still
you know,
here.
like, kind of that hard work of, I don't even want to just say evaluating, but building those relationships, and then, having the bigger guys be able to come in with less work, with less time, and just be able to throw a figure at them and get them. It's not a level playing field by any means. I do think that with us being, tournament eligible finally, I think that helps a little bit with the direction of what we're doing. But, the OVC is what, 29 out of 32 leagues, 31 leagues. I mean, we're a bottom fish, you know what I mean? So we're taking guys that maybe have a checkered past, maybe have been overlooked. In Damani's situation last year, Damani suffers a foot injury, when he's playing at JUCO, and everybody who was higher than us backed off of him. They're like, well, you got a foot injury, we're not going to mess with you anymore. We continue to recruit him. He comes here, he's really good, and then 7-8 months later, he's out the door, going someplace else. So it's a revolving door. It is a competitive conference as far as the guards, but I mean, if you look the past 2-3 years, every first team guy, I think, last year left. I mean, Rob Martin's gone. Like, I think a lot of dudes this year who are first team guys are in the same boat, and I think they're going to higher levels. So retention is impossible with guys that are producing. And you just got to try to find your niche of how you can get guys to come here and produce in the short time that you're going to have them.
Yeah, I mean, you obviously can't fault any of the players for moving on to a bigger program, especially when now with the landscape, like, you might be getting 10, 20, 30x the amount of money that you were making, sometimes more than that. Like, if you're a guy who comes in, say at USI, you make the first team in the Ohio Valley, you could be a guy who's like making $1 million the very next year.
No doubt.
So, like,
No doubt. And I mean, realistically, like 2 years ago when it was Jordan Sears and I'm calling Jacob Cruz, both were at Tennessee Martin. Sears goes to LSU, Cruz goes to Missouri. Those guys were, half a mil, 300 to 500, and that just seems like the going rate now for what it is. I mean, you got Power Fives offering that type of money for guys to sit on the bench.
Yeah.
Just going like, okay, well, we can't compete, from that standpoint. But yeah, like, to your point, like, I can't be mad, if it's something that we feel like we can match and we can be kind of close to, then yeah, your relationship, what you've done in the program, your history with it, you kind of look at like a kid like Swope following shirts, and like knowing what he could do and who he could be, within that system. If the money is comparable, yeah, stay with the place that you have the fit in what it is. But if you're talking about gaps of hundreds of thousands of dollars, like, I'm in the same boat. Like, I'm out for that type of money as well. You know what I mean?
It would be
So,
irresponsible of you as a person who is investing in their future, like you investing in them so that they can have a better future, to say stay. It's like, buddy, if you can make $200,000, like, I would love to have you here, but you gotta leave.
Yeah, and I mean, the demographic of the majority of players that shoot, are playing college basketball, playing college football. I mean, that is, now you need to be able to invest it and do the right things with it so that it can be, generational wealth,
Yeah.
But I mean, you got kids that come from nothing that are getting offered, more money than I make in a couple years. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? So
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
who are we to say, that it's not a good thing, it's not the right thing. You obviously hope that it works because it's big for us. We always talk about the long-term investment. Don't leave. Now again, we're not talking about 200 $300,000 difference, but if it's close, don't leave, for flash in the pan. Let's think about your long-term longevity of if you come back and you're this player, if you come back and you're another first team all OVC or you put up 18 a game again, what does that do for your pro contract when you leave, as opposed to, you do a flash in the pan money, you're not playing a whole lot.
Right.
I mean, you got to weigh your options when it comes to that.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely can be a gamble, right? You go sit on the bench, don't do anything, and then that's kind of the end of it, or you continue to ball out and people see something else in you. And
I mean, I think a good example last couple of years is Peyton Sparks potentially, right? Like, dude was a dog in the MAC. He ate every night on the court, and then went to Indiana, and I'm sure I don't know what the monetary value was
yeah,
there, but I'm sure he got a lot more than he got at Ball State.
Right.
And then just didn't his productivity
yeah,
was just not
less
there.
than 8 minutes a game.
Yeah, and I don't know if again I don't know if that's a coaching thing, like it just didn't quite fit the schemes, or if it was he just didn't quite
I mean,
adjust
I
to
think
the
it's
more
like
competitiveness of the Big Ten. But like,
when you start looking at, and we don't delve into it a whole lot, but like when you guys start looking at league rankings, right? Whether it's Ken Palm
Mm-hmm.
or whatever it is, and you start looking where we're at, right? And even like the MAC obviously is above us, right? But
mhm,
like you're talking about a huge jump, a
Yeah,
huge jump in competitive, like I mean, we've said it to a bunch of dudes. Like we said it to AJ Smith. Like, hey man, like you're gonna go to a level where everybody looks like you, everybody's just as athletic as you are,
mm-hmm.
everybody is gonna be just as tall as you are,
Right.
and you are gonna need to be more skilled in what you do.
mhm,
Yeah,
So when you're dominating at a lower level, it's not always going to come in and you're going to say, okay, this is me in the MAC and this is me in the Big Ten, because you're talking about, I mean, huge jump, right? In
mm-hmm.
the competition you're playing every night, the dudes on your own roster that you're trying to compete against. And I don't think as many kids like understand that even from like our level OVC jumping to the A10,
Yeah,
that that's drastic. That's a
yeah,
yeah,
drastic leap in strength, quickness, size, physicality, whatever you have. Like it is big. It's big. So to say that you can go MAC to the highest of highest levels,
yeah. Seriously,
I mean,
it's a
that's
tough ask.
it's a big jump. It's a big jump.
yeah. And there's just the uncertainty behind it. I think is what is kind of going back to what we talked about of like you don't know you produce at this level, and then are you going to produce the same numbers at a higher level?
Right.
Maybe if you're just insane,
Yeah.
but
And
maybe
are
not.
you, yeah, and are you okay if
Yeah,
you don't? Like, are
yeah,
you okay with secure enough in yourself and like feel okay to know that, you know what, I might play and score 3 game and that, like,
Right.
especially
That's
someone
gonna
who's
be your
like,
career.
yeah, someone who's like been balling out their whole career. And it's like, yeah, I'm leading one of my leading scores on every team. It's like, that's got to be a shocker as well.
yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, I think then you delve into the other side of it is that, yes, and love Jerry, love Jeremiah. That's my
Mm-hmm.
guy. Love him. And we'll tell Jerry's story just of like, hey man, like it didn't work out for him, right? It didn't go well,
Yeah.
and like, we'll get the same thing. Well, like I'm a bet on myself, man, like all this stuff. And it's like, okay, well, like you're rolling the dice with your future.
Mm-hmm.
Like you guys all say you want to play pro, you all say you want to do this, you know, let alone, not in obviously Jerry's situation because he was coming in as a grad student, but like, you got guys going on 3, 4 schools. Are you going to graduate? Are you getting a
Right.
degree? Is that important to anybody anymore?
Right.
Yeah.
Like, hey, you're going to go from a first team guy to, not playing a whole lot, and all of a sudden, what does that do for your first contract of you being pro? Now it's going to take you 2 to 3 years at a lower level professional for you get to the same level where you could have just started if you would have stayed and produced, but like it's hard to fault kids that want to bet on themselves, like it is, yeah, all right, we can try to tell you, we can try to advise you. But yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any such thing as even production wherever you're going, like even OVC to OVC transfers, like coming from, Jaren was in the SWAC. He scored 7 a game in the SWAC. He comes to us, he's 15 a game. You'd think the SWAC is lower than us. His production probably should have maybe dropped if
Yeah.
anything. But it talks about the system, the fit, giving guys confidence to do what they're supposed to be able to do, and it's us watching tape and evaluating and stuff. But we get Jay Rand for 8 months. We turn him in from a 18% 3-point shooter at Alabama A&M to almost 40%, double his production, and he's gone, and he's gone. So I mean, it's insanity, man, and I think, to the point of Peyton and some of these other guys, like, you're seeing it right now. Dudes are staying in school because they understand that they're going to make more money at school. They don't care if they're playing. They're
Right.
going to stay at school because they're making more money staying at school. So do you want to play? Are you fine with that role? Do you want to compete for that? Is all this NIL money taking the competition out of it? Because all these guys are getting paid before they do anything, right? Like, yeah, there'll
Right.
be stuff in your contract about, you being a good citizen and stuff like that, and you got to go to class, blah, blah, blah. But like,
They got they got the money,
I'm getting $750,000. Why do I don't need to practice, right? Like, I don't need to do this stuff. And it's just, I don't know. And I'm not going to sit here and say that it's ruining things, but it's changed the perspective of the student athlete, I think, dramatically,
Yeah.
Cause it's just, I'm a firm believer in adversity shapes your whole entire life, like at the most adverse moments that you've ever had in your life, you've probably learned the most about either yourself or that situation that you're in. And I just think we're taking the adversity aspect out of this entire younger generation, because when it gets hard, they're just going to go in the portal.
And
When it
then
gets hard,
almost be rewarded sometimes
yeah,
for it.
when it gets hard, I'm just going to shut it down. I'm still getting paid. It's not a big deal, and we're just teaching them to shy away from hard times and grinding. And, I say often to our dudes, like, I mean, hey guys, like, I work, right? I've had jobs, and I can tell you right now that there'll be times where your boss talks to you in a manner, right, that you don't like.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
Yeah.
What do you, well, I'm just going to the transfer portal. Okay, like, yeah, well, you're going to get fired from that job,
Yeah.
right? And you're going to struggle to get another job, and eventually all that's going to catch up with you, because it's just going to be a long list of the guys on your references and your past jobs all saying like, yeah, man, like,
Right.
doesn't want to work, and I think that that's what used to be the power of sports, of us trying to, you know, help these guys grow and develop and mature and understand that, basketball is a platform for you to continue to grow and develop and, be this outstanding citizen by the time you're done. And I, I don't know. I don't know if it's still what I'm trying to do. I don't know if there's a lot of coaches that are still trying to do it that way, because it's so transactional now,
Yeah.
like, hey, you're not producing, you're done here. We're going to bring in somebody else, double his money, and hopefully he pans out, but I don't think that there's, this lifelong relationship of what it is. Like, I'm still going to talk to Damani and Jalen and Steve all the time, because those are my guys. I recruited them. I brought them here. I loved them. My family loved them, and like, that's what it's supposed to be about,
Yeah.
more than, the winning, the
So
money, all
abbreviated
that
now.
stuff. Yeah, I mean, you get them. It's a flash in a pan, man. You know what I mean? It's a flash in a pan.
So kind of talking about that, like, it just feels so like not saying that every recruitment feels transactional, but I'm sure that it can feel that way. Looking at like what you guys used to do for recruits, I'm sure has now changed, and how you go about recruiting. And, NIL is a big factor there for a lot of recruits. But Southern Indiana, because of in my opinion, the stupidest rule in college sports. Was ineligible for the for the NCAA tournament for what, 4 years
Yep.
because of the transition period, and then you guys are going through the process of knocking a year off. So then you guys will be eligible this postseason for the NCAA tournament, which the Ohio Valley usually gets a 16 seed. So could be, playing in Dayton. There's an opportunity to win some money for the school, right? Which I'm sure would help out. But how does being NCAA tournament eligible help in recruiting, or does it not matter anymore because kids just want to have the contract and play basketball wherever it is, as long as they have the contract?
Yeah, I mean, I think it helps, and I think last year we talked about Indiana State not getting in because of a tough loss in the tournament to Drake, and then they dropped that game on the road to Illinois State. They
Mm-hmm.
should have been an NCAA team, but like there's nobody that's outside of the Power Four right now that can sit in a living room with a kid or on a Zoom or wherever it is and be like, hey man, we're going to be a 2-bid league. It's not
Right.
happening. It's not happening. Um, I do think that it has dramatically changed what we are able to bring in, what we're able to recruit. Um, we don't have the sore, thorn in the side anymore of, oh, well, they're not eligible for postseason play. You guys been in the gym, you've seen the arena.
Yeah.
You know, we've led the OVC in attendance the past 2 years. We have by far the best facility, in the OVC. We got one of the better ones, I think, in the Midwest that are better than some Valley schools. So I think it's changed it dramatically of what we're able to just go. And when we talk to a kid, we always used to still be able to talk about, hey, we need to rewrite history and we need to change the legacy, right? Like we are getting further and further removed from, us being this blue blood powerhouse Division II program. Kids don't care.
Yeah.
Kids don't care about that anymore, right? Well, what can you do for me now? What is it? And we're still in this unique situation where this group that comes in this year can, whether they're here for 6 months, 8 months, 2 years, these dudes would be living legends in Evansville for the rest of their life, right? If they lead us to an OVC championship, if they lead us to an NCAA tournament, and hey, if they leave and go somewhere else, those dudes are going to be immortalized on a wall right next to
Yeah.
Sam's picture in the 95 team,
Yeah.
just the same way people are still insane about Bruce and Coach G. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so I think it has changed a lot, and we're not trying to kind of walk around it of saying, oh, we can go to the CBI and stuff like that. It's like, no,
Mm-hmm.
like let's come in here and do this because it's time for us to do this, and I think it's allowed us to, I don't want to say settle because I don't think that we settled for the guys, but like some of those dudes just fell in our lap and they didn't have, an opportunity maybe to go someplace
Mm-hmm.
else. Like, but like Brad Klein, our ESPN guy, has been interviewing some of the dudes that we've had, signed and gotten in, and he's been asking those guys, you know, would you have entertained USI last year or prior, knowing that they couldn't go to the tournament?
Mm-hmm.
A couple guys have come out direct and been like, no, like I wouldn't have talked to him. Like NCAA tournament is the biggest thing. I want to be there. I want to be on that
Yeah.
stage.
That's what you do
That's
it
what
for.
it's about. Some of the guys have been, a little bit, PC about the answer and
Mm-hmm.
stuff, but there are a couple guys that are going to be on our roster this year that we actively recruited last year, that didn't come to us because of that fact, right? So it's kind of what we've always said, right? Like when we're losing battles to Tennessee Tech and Tennessee Tech is telling people, oh, well, like USI can't go to the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
I can come right back at you and say, you guys haven't been to the tournament since 1963.
Yeah.
Just because you can go doesn't mean
Doesn't mean you will.
right? I mean, we
That's
still have
valid.
a good product. We still got to win. But in terms of the Division I production that we're bringing in this year, I mean, it's night and day. It's night and day. I think obviously the roughest year was year two, as we kind of made that transition. I thought last year we were able to get on some really good JUCO guys, a couple D1 dudes, and I think I said last year we are kind of in this mix of as we kind of made the transition. And I don't think it'll be a year to year thing where we know what it is, but we were in a unique situation where we could kind of see what worked for us. So the
Mm-hmm.
first year, that second year we went a little bit more heavy D1. That second year or third year, I guess, second year we went last year we went way more JUCOs and only 3 D1 transfers, and this year we're going heavy with D1 guys with known production. Um, a lot of guys that, like I said, we've previously recruited that we weren't going to get these guys knowing that we couldn't, participate in postseason play. So I think it opens a door to, and again, I don't want to say that we weren't about winning because that's never been what we're about. But if you sit with a kid and he says it's not a big deal not to go,
Yeah.
well, you know, are are you a winner? Do you want to win at the highest level?
Right.
I think that's been the hardest thing for us during the transition is like these kids, what are they playing for? You know
And
what I mean?
I think, it if I think NCAA tournament is obviously where everyone wants to end up. Like all 360 teams want to end up there, but only 68 do. And I feel like if you're that player, you're being recruited by Southern Indiana, and they're saying things that are important to you. Coaches, obviously, play style is probably pretty important. Making the NCAA tournament is going to be important, and then the money you can make. Well, if you've got maybe a play style that might fit you somewhere else, similar money, but you can go to the tournament. Like
Right.
it feels like a simpler decision
Yeah.
No doubt.
because it's like I would like to play after. I would like to play into March. I would like to play
Yeah.
longer
And
than that.
all these kids are looking at it too of like, okay, if you can make the NCAA tournament and you score 20 points in that first round
Mm-hmm.
game, whomever, okay, well, like your bag's gonna be different. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
Yeah.
Because you've
like
done it on the highest platform of what it is. So we got to be in tune with what these kids are looking. They're all looking for a platform to go up. You know what I mean? To go up. So I think it's a huge thing for us. You know, you guys saw the facility, man. You've seen the community. You know, we are right there from we got to win. All right. I'm not going to BS you in that regard. We need to win and we need to get the right guys in here to win. But like we have everything else in place. We're not talking about we play in a gym,
mm-hmm.
a hockey rink like some others in our city. Uh, we have everything in place for us to do this and be successful. And the conference tournaments in our backyard. The OVC is a easy conference tournament. If you're the first and the second, you get a
Yeah,
bye all the way to semis. You're not talking about the Ace Sun where it's like 18 rounds going
Yeah.
through. But,
yeah, and you get to
you know,
stay. You get to stay in your own bed.
right.
You know.
There are a lot of things in our favor. And I think the one thing that was always the question about it was just like, yeah, man, like and we saw with our women's team last year, they're unbelievable. They were killing it, right? And UT Martin benches all the players in the championship game because he thinks he can go out and beat Caitlin Clark. Like, no,
Yeah.
dude, like let your girls compete for a championship. Like, let them compete for a championship. But we didn't get to be able to do that. So you start looking around and going like, yeah, I mean, what are these guys playing for? You know what I mean? Like, and you see more and more teams that are opting out of the CBI and opting out of the NIT because those guys are out. They're gone. You know what I mean? So postseason play is is NCAA tournament or bust, or they're going to the Crown to get
Mm-hmm.
7 million in their pocket.
And you guys have the distinct advantage being in the Ohio Valley of you. If you win the OVC, you are the first team into the tournament. Like, what was it, Morehead State this year?
Yep.
First time they go, and they are or
SIUE.
SIUE.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we are a week. I think we're like a darn near a week, or I think we're a week before everybody else
yep.
finishes a championship. So
Like that
You
is
finished
just
before a lot of conferences even start.
yeah.
right.
Like that's just such a cool thing. Like everyone will they will just have nothing else to talk about but you, like but this team going to the tournament. You are the first team, first time you made it too. So they're gonna talk about you even more. Like that would be pretty freaking sweet as a
It'd be
player.
awesome. And like I told you guys off air, I mean, not to talk about the D2 days, but that was really my first experience in 2018-19 of coming down here. They were building the gym. Stan got toured around by the president. We were down here to coach the D2 NABC All-Star game. And it was Alex Stein's year, and they're in the Final Four. And man, the Ford Center was rocking. Man, that's a 10,000 seat arena. There was
Mm-hmm.
9,800 in there. Man, this fan base is hungry for us to be there, right? For us to do something, and it's just crazy to still think about all of the things that we're still looking for. We haven't won a game in the conference tournament yet. We've been there, but we haven't won
Yeah.
one. So you just start talking about legacy to these guys, and even if you're here, just like I said, for that short time, man, like you're going to be ingrained here forever because that's what these people are. Like you guys saw, we got an older fan base. There's still people who were around when G was playing in that 95 team, and
Yeah.
like I think it's hard for them to adjust a little bit of not seeing guys, progress through the years and understand that. But like the core concept still remains is that they want us to win, and they expect us to win. So we got to, get it together and get it right.
Makes sense. Um, Talking about recruitment in general, right? Like we've talked about, what is it like to recruit, especially in the off season. Um, how are you recruiting during the season, especially when you're on the road, things like that? Like, what does that look like for USI?
So starting kind of summer, I mean, we've really kind of pumped the brakes on AAU events. We just don't really see the value. It was when we were D2, our booklet cost like, I don't know, $395. And then by the time we got D1, and I'm talking about like a 2-day span between a tournament here and a tournament there, it was $805. We got to be smart with our recruiting budget. We got to be
Mhm.
smart with our dollars. We will still go out to all the high school scholastic events in June. So whether that's us up in Chicago at Riverside Brookfield, Charlie Hughes in Indianapolis, we'll get up to Michigan. We'll try to go Ohio, St. Louis. We'll just try to track some guys in some areas that we've seen. And we've had previous recruiting success in. We've really run into the kids that we think are good enough at the high school level, to come in and help us. Usually already have, let's say I'm up in Chicago. That kid probably already has an Illinois State offer, right? Like
Mhm.
I have an Indiana State, and you know that's it's a better league. Like I'm not going to
Yeah.
sit here and sugarcoat. It's a better league, and
Yeah.
high school kids especially. I think they always want to go to that top place. I think kids are getting smarter too now, where if they get that offer in June, that kid's going to be committed, mid-July because he understands once you get to August, man, it's
Yeah.
moving on. You know what I mean? So we'll go out there just so we can start building relationships with guys. I mean, I think we're in a business now where you might not get the kid year one, you might get him year three, just
Mhm.
having that relationship with him, and he remembers you and the connection you guys made. But then once fall hits, we're all JUCO. All right. So we'll go to all the regions. We'll do the region tours. We'll do the jamborees. So we'll be in Florida. We'll be in Kansas, Texas. We'll go to John A. We'll go to Vincennes, some local places that are close. The jamborees, Texas, Colorado, and just start tracking some guys. I mean, that's really what we did heavy last year. It's how we got
Mhm.
guys like Braxton and Damani and those dudes committed. And he tracked those guys. And, if we're on the road, like we were in, shoot, I guess we were even playing Lindenwood or SIUE, and we were recruiting a kid in St. Louis. So it's just like, hey, all right, we're here on a Friday night. This kid's playing. We're looking at his schedule. Let's hop in a rental car. Let's hop in an Uber. Let's go to his game. So like there'll be some kind of random ones like scattered in like that. And then there'll be some random, JUCO games scattered in there where we got to get out to Kansas to see a kid. I think we were shoot, I think I ended up leaving. I went to Kansas City to watch a high school game. Then I drove over to watch Barton and Hutch. Drove back to Kansas City and then met the team in Lindenwood or SIUE.
Jeez.
So you just look at the calendar of guys that we're on, and try to figure out times where you can get down there to see them. That makes sense, obviously financially for us.
Right.
And then you're looking at box scores, you're checking what guys are doing. Obviously this year we didn't go heavy JUCO, not to say that we weren't evaluating guys, and probably would have taken more if we could have got some of our higher targets. But then once our season was over, that's when JUCO is going on, right? All their conference tournaments are going on. So I was down in Florida, Aldi was over in Texas, G kind of split between both. We were back up at Ren Lake for Region 24. We were recruiting a couple guys from John A pretty hard. And then you kind of circle back, and then once the portal opens up, you forget everything that you've done for the past
Are
past
you
4 or 5 months.
Are you able to just talk to the JUCO guys whenever you want?
Yeah. I mean, so we can hit them up, and then, it's just after games, you can talk to them and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So nothing crazy, but, just try to build that relationship. I mean, I think it's one of the things that, I specifically really try to pride myself on with these guys understanding who I am as a person, as a
Yeah.
human being, where it's not just, this basketball coach and blah blah blah. I don't think I'm that big time, where I can't relate to these guys. And but yeah, I mean, you just try to go out and you try to do this. And again, we were on a kid at John A for a really long time, and he just signed with Cal State Northridge. And that'll be a guy that Chicago kid, known him for a long time. And I can't fault the kid for going to LA over Evansville.
That actually it kind of brings up a second question I've been thinking about for a bit. Earlier, you talked about, um, you know, having guys like Milky, where you're 4 years, you're building a relationship with them, and now it's 8 months or whatever that timeline looks like, and then they might leave. And you're a coach. I think Adam and I both know this, and kind of alluded to it, that you pride yourself in those relationships that you have with players, and helping them just be, and supporting them as, a man, right? Growing into be, whether that's an eventual father or, whatever, uh, life takes them. Um, at being like that, do you still find that, like, do you feel fulfilled to, like, okay, now you might only build a relationship with a guy for 1 year, but you've made an impact. You might be making an impact on more guys versus having a stronger impact with fewer. Kind of, does
Yeah,
that make sense?
yeah. I mean, yeah, like the turnover rate is a lot.
Mhm.
Like I think, like, again, like I said at the beginning, like we're kind of like these JUCO guys, and I think that's why you see a lot of JUCO head coaches getting jobs, because they're more accustomed to the way that this craziness
Mhm.
is.
Yeah.
For a year, he's out the door. Get him out the door. Um, I think, I go back and forth like in my head. I don't want to change who I am as a person first
Yeah.
and foremost. I don't
Yeah.
want to change who I am as a coach just because the climate, and the landscape has changed. It's difficult. I'm not going to lie to you. It is hard, because you reach a point in the season, and we reached it last year, and you're looking around the locker room and you're going like, he ain't with us. Like he's leaving. He's leaving.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And to still be able to pour in when it does seem one-sided, right? And I
Yeah.
think that's the hard thing, I think, for me, because it's usually the other way around, right? It's usually the
Mhm.
athlete is trying to pour into a coach, and the coach is like, and that is sided, and that's transactional.
Yeah.
Have always said, and I've always said, is that you need to be around people, right? We're going to ask you to be accountable on the court. You're going to be accountable for the level of player. If you tell me you want to be all league, then you're going to get pushed to be an all league guy. You're going to be held accountable off the court, in the classroom, in the community, right? All of these things, we're asking the student athletes to do all of this stuff. Well, what does the student athlete get in return if it's just constantly me being like, hey, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this? It's all one-sided, right?
Mhm.
So I want to have that where that kid at any time, and like, you know, I mean, we've been through some stuff. Like Jack Campion's dad passes away during the middle of the season. I'm sitting outside with that kid at 4 a.m. after a game. I don't know what to say to the guy.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just there though, right? And
Yeah.
like, those are the things that I think mean more for what it is, right? And
Yeah.
like, I can't remember if I told you guys a Justin Hardy story or not. Justin played at Wash U. He was diagnosed with stage 4 stomach cancer. Recruited the kid when I was at Lewis. Loved him. Amazing human being. Never coached him. Never coached him. We stayed in touch. We stayed in contact. His high school coach ended up calling me and telling me that he was diagnosed with stage 4 stomach cancer. And I wrote him a letter, and I went over and watched him play, and he ended up having his like career high. And this kid is literally, he's got a cancer port
Wow.
on his chest. He's going through chemo. He was 235 pounds. He was wasting away, and he scores like 29 against like Case Western. And I was just like, hey man, like anything I can ever do for you, like, you're my guy. Like, I love you. Like, I love your family. Never coached the kid.
Yeah.
The way I recruited of what it was, now we fast forward, the Final Four is in New Orleans. Me and my wife are down there. We're getting prepared to watch. I think it's Duke UNC. It's like Krzyzewski's like last game.
Uh-huh.
Justin Hardy calls me and he's like, "Hey man, do you want to come to the game?" And I'm like, What game? Like, what are you talking about?" He's like, "Do you want to come to like the Duke UNC game?" So I'm like, "Sure, man." Like, out of all the people that are down there, he calls me. Me and my wife show up to the game. We go out to breakfast with him the next day. Um, he ended up passing, and it's probably 2 weeks after he passes away. His dad sent me a jersey. It's hanging up right over here in my corner, and it says, "Coach Sprue, thanks for always believing in me." Justin Hardy never coached the kid,
Yeah.
never coached,
Right.
but like that to me is more what it is supposed to be about, of
Right.
investing yourself in kids, understanding that you are this person in their life that you can always go to, whether
Mhm.
it's the best news you've ever heard or the crappiest you've ever heard.
Yeah.
Not trying to get you guys kicked off the podcast with the cuss
No,
words,
You
you
can
can you can
swear.
you can
but
swear here.
I think that is so lost now in what it is because it is so one-sided and transactional. And yeah, like I'm getting more kids and more of this stuff, but like, how many kids that are coming into the program or programs around the world when it doesn't work out, right? Talking about that adversity thing, the first person that those kids the majority of the time are pointing the blame at
Yeah.
are us as coaches. Well, we screwed them over. So I'm getting more turnover in guys, but you're also getting hit with like, oh, like this wasn't good for me. This wasn't a good situation. Like blah 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 blah. And like, no matter how good of a relationship you have with a kid, if his mindset is that, hey, you guys ended up screwing me over in this situation, I shouldn't have come here, then it's not going to be a relationship.
Yeah.
And you're not going to bat 1,000 with all these kids anyways, and that's fine. I think too many guys, especially young dudes, try to get into business to be like real like friends with these guys and stuff. And like, yeah, you can have a friendship, but there is a line of, hey man, like we're gonna be friends, but we're also here to do something, right? And
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
You're
better than you.
friends. You're still a
Yeah,
coach. Still a player. There's
and
still
like,
lines there.
and well, that so and so doesn't like you. It's like, okay, like, I mean, you roll it off the back, but you don't change who you are,
Mm-hmm.
just because this world is getting crazy and stuff. And like, you guys saw my basement last time. I got Jordan, Kobe, Pippen. I got, my wife was Alabama, so I got Saban. I got Struce's jersey over here, and I got Justin's right there. And it's a good constant reminder to stay level, stay focused, and do it for the right reasons.
Yeah.
Of
Yeah.
it's supposed to be.
For sure. You kind of talked about, looking around the locker room saying, oh, well, that guy's not going to be here. That guy's not going to be here next year because, the reality is like when you're good, people are going to want you. They're going to pay you. So, like, how at the end of the season, I assume every program has meetings with all the players to kind of discuss, what the path forward is going to be. Do you What percentage would you say like going at each player, like they're going to be here or they're not going to be here? I'm sure, like, I'm sure going into the meeting with like Jalen and Damani and Alawani, you were like, okay, like I know.
We prayed. We
Yeah.
prayed. We prayed. We tried. We tried our best. But yeah, I mean, I mean, and I think it's a hard line too of like, that they want different, and then in
Uh-huh.
some cases we know that we want different. You know what I mean? Like, and it is sadly two-way like that. Usually the guys that are leaving that have produced, you don't want to leave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of the guys that say, "Hey man, I'm out of here," and haven't produced, you're not as sad potentially about, that. Shoot, I would say 80 to 80 to 90. You might get surprised and shocked by one kid that says he wants to come back that just doesn't understand that, he was a detriment or kind of just didn't take it serious enough for us to warrant the effort anymore in it. Um,
What do you say? Or what is the path then for you? Like in that case, are you like,
I mean,
thanks, but
it's a very open thing of just like, and I think Coach G does a good job with it. of just being like, okay, like you talk, like you say what you want to say. And sometimes when the student athlete says what he wants to say, that takes care of what it is, right off the bat. I do think like a crutch for the guys that are the good players, as they always say, and even like Struce did this back in the day too when he told me he was going to go to the NBA, and I was like, okay, right, 6'6" white guy, yeah, no chance in hell, and now he's on TV right now,
Yeah.
but like it's like the line like if I don't get what I want, I'll come back, and he leaves like the little sliver of hope, and you're like, he ain't coming back, man, he's not coming back. But I think having that open dialogue and obviously I think it plays into the relationship with kids being able to feel comfortable in those situations of being able to talk freely, openly, about what they've been through and what they're thinking, and then obviously if it isn't lining up with, you know, the way we see it or what it is, you try to have tangible data, you try to have, we keep track of everything from missed classes, lates, all that stuff where you kind of have this sheet going down of, just things that you can say like you're not upholding to the standard of what we want our program to be. But I do think G always errs on the side of like this kid wants to be here, figure it out, and he's not a knucklehead, and he's not doing bad off the court or in the classroom or stuff like that, and just needs another year. Like he's gonna let that kid come back because it's better for the kid to stay here in the long run because he's gonna be on path to graduate and he's gonna be around us, and but not every kid chooses to do that. So I would say you get like one or two where you're just kind of like, oh, this is surprising. But other than that, like, and again, like we went off the rails, man. Like we had really good non-conference, and then I don't know. We were feeling really good going into it. And like I said, man, you start looking around the locker room and you're just like, these kids don't want to be here. You know what I mean? And that's never, ever, ever a good thing, as you look around your locker room.
They're all looking at the texts from the 15 different coaches that are texting them.
Yeah. I mean, we would be naive to think, right? Like, we played DePaul really well.
Yeah.
If the ref would have called the damn foul, we would have won the game. With Steven is 28 against a Big East team. Like, you're telling me nobody's calling that kid?
I still can't believe you guys got jobbed like that. That was horrible.
It was nuts, man. And like, it was like, and you go back in your mind because, we had timeouts and Holtman didn't. And like Holtman was just drawing up like crackbacks for Riviera, banging threes, and G was like, "Should we call a timeout?" I'm like, "No, like Holtman's gonna dice us up. Like, don't call
give
it."
him any
Like,
time to regroup.
And I can't. I think Damani's shooting the free throws, and I'm screaming at camp. I'm like, "We are fouling. We are fouling." The ref is like right there, like.
Yeah, like the ref knew.
And now it's like I got to be like more deliberate, in like those moments of like going over the ref and being like, "Excuse me, sir, like I would just like you to know that we are up 3 and we are going to foul. Please, please, please help us."
Now listen to me. When he touches him, he is trying to foul him. Understand that.
And it
You'd think refs would know that you're
do.
always going to foul up 3.
They do. They do.
They knew
were
who was
aware.
paying. They knew who was paying the tag that evening.
They wanted to come back to Wintrust, dude.
You couldn't. Hey, and I love those guys, man. They got a great staff, and I think Holtman's going to get it going. I grew up like a couple blocks away from DePaul, but like, they can't have him first game losing to. And it's fun.
Man.
The former president at UIndy is now the president at DePaul.
Oh, really?
Great human being. So it was awesome. We got to chop it up with him before the game. So he knew, man. He probably slipped him a couple more. You know what I mean?
Hey, man, didn't Archie lose to Indiana State his first game or
something like that?
Or one of them. He lost his.
Never again.
Yeah. I just like to think that when we go in for our year-end meetings with Coach G, he'll be like, you know what? You gave us 155 fouls given. You set a couple of good screens. We'd love to have you back. Minimum NIL package.
Yeah.
We'll give you $1 so that
free
you can
guys.
say.
Yeah, we need guys like that.
Right. That'll be me.
Program guys. program
Yeah,
guy.
you know
Yeah.
what? We're the new 4-year guy.
There you go. I don't ever want to leave college.
If we're the 4-year guys, we got one more year, and then
That's true.
we gotta graduate.
That's true.
Um. So talking about last year, right? What do you think went right? Um. And then on the inverse of that, like, what do you think? What are y'all going to try and improve on going into this next season?
Need to figure out how to win close damn games. We're
2
three
years
and
in a row, so many.
I know we were 3-10 this year in games decided by 5 points or less. I think last year we were 2-12 maybe. But positive side, I mean, obviously the non-conference schedule. I think we go into conference play 6-4, which was a drastic change from the year before.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously we didn't schedule as hard, but going to Bellarmine and coming back from 17 down, winning against a former D2 rival was pretty awesome. For us as a staff, of going through those battles with Scotty and over the years. But like I said, man, we felt really, really good about this team coming in. To the conference tournament. We get a big shot by Jack Campion against Tennessee State, and we're feeling really good. And then we go out the next game and get absolutely dog walked by by UT Martin, and it's the game right before Christmas.
Yeah.
And it was the first year that the OVC's done it where we didn't start our conference play after Christmas. And we were off the rails, man. Like we weren't consistent.
That game broke me.
It broke us, I
I'm
think.
sure. It
Like,
felt
you know,
like it.
we just couldn't get back to that level. Like, we play South Dakota and Campion's unbelievable, and he's 8 assists and 1 turnover. He's 9 assists and 1 turnover, and he had 3 games in a row of 9 assists, 1 turnover. And Indiana State, we play at this high pace, and we go out and we play really well, and we beat them, and we just could never get that consistency across the board of what it was. And then you go into conference and just didn't have it. And then once those wheels start going off, man, like it's hard to get those guys back on track of what it is. So, I mean, I think the good is, maybe we figured out a little bit of non-conference of how we can schedule ourselves a little bit better. The bad, obviously, those close games, are just heartbreakers when you're right there, and I think, not to be disrespectful to the team from last year, we had more talent, you know what I mean? We should have
Yeah,
won more games. I don't think
absolutely.
there's a doubt about that. So we got to look at ourselves too of how we can be better in these situations, how we can get our guys better prepared. Um, I do think having more guys like dudes, like we got away with a lot of stuff when we had Swope and Jelani, and we could throw the ball into JP, and you had Trevor and those guys. Like, players ultimately at the end of the games are the guys that are going to make those plays. Do we need to put them in better situations to make those plays? Probably, probably. Um, but we just got to get some more dudes that are hands in the fire and ready to go. But again, it's the same conversation that we had last year. If you win half those games, if you're not whatever I said 3-10 and you're 5-5 and whatever,
Mm-hmm.
or 7, like it's a much better looking season.
And you're also in the tournament, the
No
Ohio
doubt.
Valley tournament.
And I mean that was obviously pretty crushing when we weren't in there, and it's not the end of the world. Obviously SEMO didn't make it the year before either.
Yeah.
And they obviously won the regular season and had some retention and had some good guys. But a little embarrassing, to not be in the conference tournament when it's in our backyard. But I think 2 out of 3 years being there is pretty good for an up and coming, D2 team.
Yeah.
Just got to get somehow. And again, consistency is such an odd word when we're turning over the roster the way we're turning it over, but we got to get some consistency in what we're trying to do and get these guys ready to roll, man, to finish the whole season, not just look at it, because obviously last year we were so bad in the non-con and we lost a couple, close games, whether it was Bucknell or LaSalle. We go to Duke and have the game of our lives.
Mm-hmm.
but we weren't winning, and then we
Right.
came
Yeah.
to the conference and we won more conference games last year than we won this year, which with the talent level that we had this year, I don't think that should have been the case. So,
Right.
just again, it's an up and down year. I think, and talking with G, I think we need to do a lot more of celebrating victory. Like when we were D2, man, and again, we were good, man. Like we weren't losing a whole lot of games, man, and like you won and there was excitement and because
Mm-hmm.
it was just the expectation of what it was. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
man, we're rolling, it is what it is. And now you win and you're kind of like, oh, what this feels like. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And
Yeah.
yeah, it's just kind of like taking off. You're like, oh, I will say that when we beat Bellarmine, like G did like a whole, and I should have got it on camera. Like they dumped water all over that locker room, and he came in, slip and slide, full blown dive coming in. But just like again, like with this new culture and what it is and all this stuff, like I don't know if these guys think of winning the same way that like I thought of winning when I was raised, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
losing was like unacceptable, right? Winning was everything. And if you
Yeah.
didn't win,
Losing should hurt.
terrible. And like now it's just like, whether that's again, I don't want to condemn everything, but the AAU life and you're
Yeah.
playing these games and you're in a bronze bracket and it doesn't matter and all this stuff. Winning needs to be celebrated and winning needs to be a big deal. And I think we got to get back to celebrating those things, making it a big deal and not just kind of the expectation of what it is, because I'm not sure these kids understand, the true value of what it can bring and what it is. So, I mean, we got to do some stuff, man. We got to change the way we play, especially with the guys we're going to be bringing in. It's a big year for us, man. And I think, I'm not going to sit here and I know Coach G wouldn't sit here, we got to get this shit right. All right. We got to get it right, and we're, you can look at it as a blessing that we're 1 year, taken off of it, right? Where we're now eligible for the postseason. You can also look at it as a curse where now it's like, hey, like clock ticking, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Clock
Yeah.
Yeah.
ticking, you know what I mean? So like we got to be hungry and we got to get the right dudes and we got to get this thing rolling, man. And I think we're obviously a staff that's capable of doing that. We feel really good about the guys we're bringing in, but I think that consistency and then again, we can't be 7 games in the deficit of 5 points.
Yeah.
We got to turn that around where, we're 10-3 in those games and we're finishing them,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden you got 7 more wins and we're at 17. And I think everybody in our area would be thrilled with 17 wins.
And I feel like those close games, it snowballs either way. If you're winning them, you feel like you continue to win them. If you lose them, continue to lose them. But
Yeah,
uh,
and it's crazy too because like I don't know what our losing streak was coming into the SIUE game at home. Like SIUE was what, second in the conference, and all of a sudden we go out there and we just play the best basketball we've played in the past like 5 games
yeah,
and beat them, and you're just going like, who, where's this been? And it just
it just
we got
wasn't enough carryover after. That's what it
yeah,
felt
it's
like.
got to be
It's like
consistent in it.
Um, real quick. So you brought up Bellarmine.
I was gonna ask the same
We
thing.
asked about it. We talked about it last week with the guest we had on. Do you think Doug is going to run the same offense as that Scott did?
I think he's got to modernize it a little bit. And who
Okay.
did you guys have on last week?
His name's Elliot Crow. He runs Bracket Busters, so he pretty much covers mid majors,
Yeah,
and follows mid majors closely, a lot more closely than we do, more holistically, I guess.
Do you like playing? I mean, not playing against Bellarmine because of the old rivalry, but like, do you like or hate planning and scouting Bellarmine because of their style?
I love it. I love it. And obviously, like we had what, almost 8 years of my coaching career was going against those
Yeah.
guys, and very unique, But like when that guy used to be able to get D1 transfers come down to D2, I mean, those dudes were
Nightmares.
loaded, dude,
Yeah.
loaded. And you had 6'7", 6'8", 6'9", all could shoot, all could pass, all could take you off the bounce. I mean, they're unbelievable, But for me, like scout team, they'll get in that little flex action off the
Uh-huh.
scissors. Once they do that, I just tell the scout team to start running around in circles. Just never stop moving. Like, 'cause if you stop
Literally.
moving, like you're not gonna get it. So I'm like literally just like run, run. So like I don't mind it. Scouting against it. I think Doug's gonna do a good job. You know, he's been in it for a long time.
Mm.
I do think they need to modernize it a little bit, you know, especially with the way it is now. You know, back in the day, we all benefited from the transfer rules when we were at Division II, where those guys were coming down and they didn't have to stay in school
Yeah.
anymore. I mean, let's be real, right? Like they didn't want to keep going to school. You come down, and obviously Bellarmine was, you know, preaching to those guys like, "Hey, man, you come here, you're gonna be in the top five. Like we're gonna compete for a
Yeah.
national championship." Like they had some dudes, man. They had some dudes, but now in this modern era of what it is, man, like you guys said, play style, fit, you know, the Atlantic Sun is a more athletic league than what we're in, and we're in a pretty athletic league, and you know that system doesn't always breed for athleticism and you know kind of the stereotypical guy of you know taking people off the bounce and get downhill and breaking you down. You know, if we're passing the ball and we're not allowed to dribble, we got to make some changes. So it'll be interesting to see, you know, what he kind of does. But I do think it needs to modernize a little bit to, you know, kind of the current climate of what it is, so that he can keep getting really good guys in there.
Right. So I kind of want to ask, when you guys are recruiting, obviously you basically have to form a whole new roster this year, and that's fairly common nowadays with a program. Uh, what do you guys like look for first? Do you look for like certain guys who are going to fit your style, or are you like, we could play one, two, three, four different ways depending on the guys we get? Just, you know, kind of mix and match. Like, what are you trying to get? Are you trying to find guys that fit the program and the way you want to play, like first and foremost, or are you like, we'll be a little bit more lenient in that regard?
You're just trying to find dogs.
Yeah, or like, you know, as long as we have hoopers, like we'll find a way to win.
Right. I mean, I think it's a combo of both. You know, I can't sit here and say that I think the best coaches in the business are constantly evolving and adapting the way that they do things. Maybe not majorly, right, but small tweaks to the rosters that they have, right? And you look at some of the guys that really don't need to do that. Like Painter probably doesn't need to do that because they got
Yeah.
great intention, right? And they're going to come in there, they're going to do the things. But you know, all these other guys, you're going to have to adapt the way you play a little bit. Now, there's you know specific positions that we try to target and that we want to be on. Stretch four has always been something that we've valued within our program. So trying to go out and find a guy, whether that's a Milky type or the Trevor Lakes, where hey, 6'7", 6'8", you could play small ball five, you know, stuff like that. But I really think this year we wanted Division I production. We wanted guys that had proven it, whether that be at a somewhat lower level, you know, or a comparable level, that have been there, that have won, that have produced. You know, I think this is really the first year for us that winning has really come into play. You know, with us
Mm-hmm.
all being eligible for it, you know, it really wasn't something that we often, you know, brought up when we were watching a kid or thinking about a kid. You know, and you got to be able to compare and contrast to your league as well. You know, you got to be able to look, you know, what we always used to say at the D2 level, can this kid help us beat Bellarmine? You know, and it's the same thing now. Can this kid who's going to come in help us beat SEMO and SIUE, right? And those guys and those guards, you know, I think we've really tried to hone in on quicker, faster, you know, as we've kind of gotten out of this transition. You know, I know our fan base kind of screams it a bunch of times that, you know, some of the guys that we had just weren't, you know, up to the speed of the OVC and what it needs to be. So we got to get some quickness. We need length. I mean, it's all the same thing, but again, like the kid that we got, who's now, you know, the best guy we've ever gotten, you know, the first team dude, like that dude's just a dog, man. And he's the most points per game that we've ever gotten in the portal before, you know, and he's got to come in here and he's got to prove it. But
Yeah.
at some point you do look at those guys and you're just like, yeah, I'm gonna take 16 points a game
Mm-hmm.
and you know, tweak it to what it needs to be. You know, and then it's just if we don't happen to get a stretch four, you know, then it's we got to be sitting in our offices and we got to be thinking about what we can do to change the way we play. You know, because
Stretch five.
Milky was involved. You know, we haven't gotten that. We tried to go more defensive, athletic at the
Yeah.
five. You know, but you guys have seen the OVC, man. You can roll four guards out there and just have a five. And whether
Yeah.
it's doing exactly what Eric Mulder did last year, Eric Mulder
Mm-hmm.
just chased the ball around to ball screens and then he rolled and then he dunked it, you
Yep.
know, and
Yeah.
he's really good at that. But changing the way we play for the guys that we have, if we're going 4 guards and we don't have a 4, a true 4. So I think it's a combo of everything, but again, when you're having to fill so many holes, and I talked at length to anybody that would listen to me last year. The best teams in our league all had retention. They all had retention. They brought back guys that had produced, that had played in that system, and then they're going like, Brad Korn's going like, oh, I'm going to take Teddy Washington to go with, Rob Martin and BJ Ward, and I'm going to get Brett and Terry, and they brought back 5 or 6 guys that had been in the system. SIU, you bring back Rayshon Taylor, who's the best player in the league, right? You get Brian Taylor, he had his bigs back. Yeah, I mean, retention wins. The concept of retention wins because it's less people that you're trying to teach new concepts to, get on board with what you're trying to do. We haven't been that lucky, you know what I mean? So, like, you are kind of casting a wide net of what it is. But I do think when you start talking about depth, if you get a 4-man who's more of a defensive guy, long slasher, okay, well, like, let's not take another guy with the same exact skill set, right? Let's look at, I'm not saying maybe a polar opposite, but if you get that guy, then let's get a stretch. Let's get a guy who can shoot it, right? If we're going to dunker spot 5, all right, let's get a 5 that is more maybe a back to the basket guy, right? Point guard, ball dominant. Let's get point guard that's maybe a little bit more pass first type dude. And you just try to balance it out as best you can where you're not maybe taking the same skill set over and over and over again, because then you're just log jamming at those spots and those kids are going to be pissed.
You don't get to a point where you're like, we got 9 guys. Look at all this talent we got, and you're like, who's going to be our front court? We're gonna run 6, 4, 6, 7.
Started off very hot with guards. We started off very hot with guards, and then it was like, shit, man, we gotta get some size, man.
Honestly, we kind of might have offered too many people here. We gotta get some big guys.
I mean, like that, and that's the hard thing about the OVC too, is that, like, I mean, the days of, I mean, shit, if Jacob Polakovic had one more year, Jacob Polakovic would be in the Big Ten. He'd be playing for Michigan or Michigan State. Like, so these like ball dominant big dudes, back to the basket. No 5s want to be back to the basket anymore. They all want to shoot 3s. We tried to get in on a kid from up in Michigan, and that kid wanted $120,000. He was 20 a game at an NAIA school. Like, I ain't got it for you, Mike. But best of luck to you, but bigs are hard to get, man. I mean, Duke just took a big that had like 1 point or 3 points per game. Like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? Like, so you got to take guys that that you can get. You got to take guys that you can get money to. Obviously, that comes into factor. I would say conversations now are less about, it's like, hey, man, what's up? Oh, hey, coach, how's it going? Hey, have you heard of USI and how much money do you want? Like, let's just cut to the chase of what it is, because if your price point is outside what we can afford, there's no point in you wasting my time or me wasting yours, right? So let's just be honest and upfront with each other,
You should just have the background of your office, just like have pieces of paper, numbers written on paper, and just have it be the amount you can offer just written behind you, and then they're like, I kind of need more. You just pull off one. It shows from like
dollars
10,000 to 20,000. Is that good? We'll just get right to it, buddy.
It would be like subtracting. It would be going the wrong way. So it would be going up. It would be going up. I had a conversation with Joe Hendrickson. He's like a big time scouting service guy in Illinois and Chicagoland area, and we were talking, and he was like, how's it going? And I was like, man, like, it's just hard. We don't have that much money. And he was like, well, if it makes you feel better, I get calls from high major coaches all the time who only have $5 million and are complaining that they don't have 10. And I was like, yeah, Joe, it doesn't make me feel any better, but thank you.
Apples to oranges, buddy.
Yeah. That's a prime steak to a rotten apple down over here, Yeah, it didn't make me feel any better.
Well, here's a little bit of change of pace. Here's a question for you. If you could change one thing about college basketball, what would it be?
I got a couple. Timeouts advance the ball, just like the women get to do. All right, advance it up. I think that needs to change. I don't care that much about the whole quarter half thing. That doesn't faze me. More broad picture, I do think in this NIL landscape and what it's going to, I don't, they're just getting sued left and right. I would have liked to see, either I know some guys have talked about it where if Stephen Olawani, for instance, like he goes to Oregon State, something in that contract coming back to us, in a monetary
Mhm.
value, something, where we're not just being left out in the dry, or I think if you go back with one-time transfer rules, I don't think the portal would be as crazy as what it is right now. If you're saying
Yeah.
you can only go one time, and I think you'd see kids signing longer contracts. Um, I don't know. I just think that you just open the floodgates for what it was, right? And like I said, last year, like the money was what the money was last year. The money this year is like 7 times what the money
Yeah.
was last year. People are just throwing enormous amounts of dollars at guys. And I mean, there's a dude I can't even remember. Like he's signed with like 3 guys. He's signed with like 3 teams already. And he's backed out of all of his grant and aids because
Yeah.
Mel isn't is like Duke Dean or something like that, right? Or somebody like that.
Yes.
I mean, you're just
It's crazy.
it is it is absolute madness right now, and I don't know how it goes back. And I don't know because every time they try to make it go back, they just get sued for something else.
Right. Like, how do you, I mean, kind of seemed like they were like, all right, you want NIL? Well, there it is. And then now they're like, this is what you get. But it's like, now how do you put,
Yeah.
it's always easier to, I always say this when I was a teacher. Like I would always start out super strict, and it's like it's always way easier to lighten up on something than it is to
You just
tighten
don't
up on it later.
Yeah, you don't open it all the way up and then
Yeah,
but I mean, that's like, going back to the adversity stuff, like, you know, if the concept still remained of like, okay, you get to transfer one time, right? If it truly doesn't work out, right? You're at a bad spot, a bad situation, you can leave. All right.
mm-hmm.
Or you continue to do the same thing that it is now and you grant those guys a transfer if their coach were to leave, right? I do think
Right.
the freedom for players to be able to matriculate when a coach leaves, coaching change, something like that. Yeah, like I think that should still exist. But we got what, almost 6,000, 7,000 kids. Like I'm surprised somebody hasn't come out and done a statistic where they're saying like there may be more kids in the portal than there
Not.
actually kids on rosters,
Yeah.
which is, I mean, what are we doing, right? And what is the percentage of these kids that twofold aren't going to go anywhere, right? They're going to go to crib U, right, back at home. What is the percentage of these kids that have transferred 2, 3, 4 times that aren't going to get their degree because
Mm-hmm.
they're jumping around so much? And maybe I'm idiotic in thinking that going to college and getting a degree because now people want to stay in college for 8 years and keep getting undergrads because they keep getting paid. Maybe I'm an idiot for thinking that way, but I just I don't see how this ever becomes self-sustaining. I don't see how you put it back in. I don't see how it is sustaining for us at the level that we're at, right? Our best players every year are going to get taken from us every year. And
Mm-hmm.
yes, we sit here and say, okay, yes, the majority, right? It should somewhat even itself out. Okay, but again, if production is coming down to us, there's something that is scaring other people away
Yeah.
about that production, right? Whether that be a class thing, something off the court, whatever the case may be, right? Like, so we more often than not are getting, it's not bad, we're getting kids with just a little bit of some checkered past or
Yeah.
or things that might scare some guys. So yeah, we're getting kids, we're getting production, but we're maybe not getting this kid who's like the Jack Milky, the 4.5 and going to work
Yeah.
for the IA, right? We're getting a kid that's been at 3 different schools with a 2.0 that we're going to have to chase around, it's a class and stuff like that. And that's fine. It's part of what we do. But I just, I don't see how it's sustainable for what it is. And I don't see how it's sustainable. I've sat here this whole time. I haven't talked one time about us bringing in a high school kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's just not there's not a place. Like we got to win. We got to win now. And for us to think that we can recruit a high school kid and the kid's going to stay here if
Yeah.
he's good.
Just waste it on, you waste your time because, like, if they're good, and if they're good, they're going to be, recruited somewhere probably. But then, like, if they're good, they're not going to be there long with you.
No,
So
no. I
I
mean,
th-
it's just, again, and I don't, this whole house settlement stuff and all this,
mhm.
I don't know. I don't know what it's going to look like. We're opting in, I don't know what revenue we have to share. Um, I don't know. I don't know what it looks like, and I've posed this question too of like, all these schools that have transitioned here in the past, 4 years, if they knew what the landscape was going to look like now, right? Where
Yeah.
we're trying to go from X number of dollars of operational budget to X number of dollars operational budget just for us to exist in the Division One
Yeah.
landscape. Well, now we're coming in over here and we're like, hey man, we need X number of dollars just to get a player on the roster,
Yeah.
right? And it is a constant battle, of we need money over here, but we also need some money here. I don't know. It'd be interesting to sit down with like Bellarmine's AD and John Mark and those guys and just pick their brain on like if this would have been something, if they knew that this was down the pipe, if this would have been like, yeah, we probably shouldn't make the jump now, knowing how
Yeah.
chaotic it is.
Wonder if you'll see more teams jump down. I mean, I feel like most schools don't want to jump down because, you know, being in D1, I guess, is cool. But, for money purposes, like whatever your NIL budget is, if you're a team that's like in the 300s in Ken Palm or whatever, like can go a lot farther
Right.
at the Division 2 level. I'm sure, obviously like the top of the top D2 is going to be pretty crazy as well. But like, you're not competing 50 grand to 10 million.
Right. I mean, yeah. I mean, I think there needs to be a cap, and whether they do it like, football where they got the two kind of divisions or something like that. Or, I mean, it just, even within your conference, I mean, UMass is joining the MAC. Why is
Mm-hmm.
UMass joining the MAC? Because UMass knows that they're coming from the A10 and they have more money than everybody in the MAC, and they think they're more successful
Yep.
than everybody in the MAC. So it's not about, hey, this is a really good fit for us geographically.
We like to
No,
travel better.
right. No, it's not. Yeah, have fun going to, Mount Pleasant. Have fun.
Yeah.
It's all about dollars right now. And, I just think it's gotten a little out of control with what it is, and, these guys, told you guys, like the dudes, and I think you're going to see this from a lot more places. Those guys that are paying the price tag for all these high major players, those are the same guys that are going to pay your buyout to get you fired when you don't win with them.
Mm-hmm.
And hey man, like I think it's more cutthroat and ruthless than it's ever been, because you don't win with the highest paid roster, right?
Yeah.
Indiana's roster last year was
Yeah.
the highest paid or one of the highest paid. How can you justify losing? Now, I don't think that the money automatically means that you're going to have the best team, but
But it
if I
shortens
if
the
I
leash.
if I'm ponying up 5 million for this roster and you're not winning, yeah,
Yeah.
dude, I'm gonna go and ask some questions.
Yeah. Absolutely. Uh, we talked a little bit last week about the whole buyout thing. I think the logistics of it would be pretty interesting because I mean, I'm not any sort of lawyer or financial person who knows how to write a contract, but like that would be really, I think, an improvement because then you have like, if you're going to make, by the way the system is set up, if you're going to make these smaller schools like Southern Indiana basically just these 1 year stops for development, like
Mhm.
for players, having some sort of, not, it's almost like a finder's fee. Yeah, at this point it's like if you want to go to a Power 5 school, like, you can have them, but it's going to cost you $200,000 to us.
Something, a percentage, I mean, here's another thing going back that should be changed is that NIL agents should be regulated by an actual whatever, whether that be like FIBA, right? All these guys are asking for, I don't want to say all of them, 17 to 27% of a contract that a kid would just get. Stephen Olawani doesn't need an NIL agent. He
Right.
doesn't. He
Right.
doesn't. But if he gets one, that dude is going to take 27% of his contract for what?
On the
For what?
wrong field.
Because guess what? The colleges are still going to call whether you have representation or not.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that needs to be regulated first and foremost, because you can't tell me, and again, maybe not all of them, majority, maybe not the majority. You can't sit here and tell me that if you're getting 27% of a kid's contract, that you're putting that kid at the right situation, the right fit, the right staff, a place where you can play. No, you're not. No, hey man, go to Arizona State. Call me next year when you don't play, and I'll get another 27%.
Yeah.
So first and foremost, that needs to be taken care of, because FIBA
I didn't
agents
think about
like
that. That's
3%,
crazy.
right? NBA agents get like 3%. So
Yeah.
what are we doing? And then with all the rest of this money that is now not going to agents, then yeah, float it back to my pocket.
There we go. You know what?
It needs to be something,
But seriously though,
or if it goes down this road where you're talking about these guys are now employees and you're signing them to multi-year agreements, then yeah, it's going to cost you to
get
void,
out of it. Yeah.
and but again, if that turns into the case, why is a kid ever going to sign a multi-year agreement?
Right. So then it'd have to be because we were talking about then the inverse, like if Southern Indiana wanted to pull a player from Notre Dame, right? Like I guess if it would be a percentage, like would you still have to do a percentage then, or would you be
like a base?
You'd have to have a tier
5%.
system of like
Right.
if you're going from tier 1 to tier 4, no buyout, or
Right.
if you're going up a tier,
Or
then there's a buyout or something.
Always going to be, it's 5% of the contract.
Mm-hmm.
So if you get $750,000 after leaving us, you owe us 5% of that contract.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And then if you want to pull somebody,
and then it's like if you go down, if you go down and you're used to making 750, and we give you some Toroni bucks and a free cheese pizza, then you can get a free slice when you come to Evansville. That's our percentage.
Start putting in. You can have the player, but you have to come play a game here.
I mean, I like that too. I mean, I've seen some guys float that out there, because then, I mean, realistically, you're getting, if that kid goes to a high major, right? Like Steven going to Oregon State,
yeah,
they're probably offering between, I don't know, 80 to 100 for a buy game. You know what I mean? So like you're somehow getting that back. Kinda, right, a little bit, but it's money coming back in. Whether that money can be used, obviously, to go to the collective is a different conversation. Right. Third party stuff, but
straight to your pocket, obviously.
I mean, that's come on now, I'm fine with that. But yeah, I mean, if I ever get out of this, we can start our own NIL state of Indiana NIL agency. We can just get it rolling.
There we go. You guys
could have had like Jalen. You guys could have had Jalen rolling. You guys would have gotten paid.
Yes, all right, we got it. You know what? We might have found our niche, man.
So just as you're recruiting guys, just say, hey, we know we've got agents for you.
They're only taking 16.7% of your contract, right? Under market.
Listen, I'll take 5%.
You might have a spot, man.
You'd be crazy. All right, we go all in on commercials. We're the cheapest agents you can get. Listen, we're the cheapest agents, but we work the hardest.
And then upcharge for every credit hour that comes into the new school. So if you don't lose like 40 hours, right, for every credit that you get to transfer into the school, you guys get like an additional whatever. What's the going rate for 3 credit hours at a university? $600, $700?
Something like that. Sure.
Boost it up.
There we go. We got an idea, man. We got
podcasts and NIL business. I think you guys can get it rolling.
And you have to come on our show. That's the deal. 5%. You have to come on our show.
Yeah, this is how this is how we commercialize you to a higher level.
Exactly. Yeah. And you know what? We'll all be in a box at the Final Four. 2 years time.
There we go. I love it.
What we need. So obviously, we talked about you guys being eligible for the NCAA tournament, and I think that's obviously where everyone wants to end up. But Indiana State didn't make it in. They had an incredible run through the NIT, and that was talked about by a ton of people. NIT is a little bit different now because of all the people going to the Crown, so it's a lot like a larger percent of it is mid majors. I think I know what your answer is going to be, but would you rather? Because the Ohio Valley, you're going to be a 16 seed, maybe a play-in game. Would you rather go to the NCAA tournament? Let's pretend you've been there before, so let's not go to the NCAA tournament for the first time. Would you rather go to the NCAA tournament or like win 1 or 2 games in the NIT?
I mean, I think obviously like Indiana State, having the prior history that they have, going and advancing and potentially getting to win a postseason tournament, pretty cool. You know what I mean? Like, pretty awesome having that chance. I mean, obviously for us, again, not having been there, right?
Right.
That's obviously where we want to go, but having the chance to win those postseason tournaments. And again, I mean, the NIT is struggling with getting people to join. I know the CBI is the same boat because guys think that their season's over and they're over it. You know what I mean? They're ready to portal. They're ready to tweet out, thank you. God's got me and I'm out of here. So I mean,
That being said,
that being said, I've really enjoyed my time here, and it pains me to say this, but I will be leaving. I really didn't want to do this, but I'm doing it. I think for us, obviously, that NCAA tournament, is obviously huge. But yeah, I mean, I think if you've been there and it's kind of been a staple, and then you can say that, hey, hey, when we don't go, to the NCAA tournament, we're going to advance in the NIT, kind of like Moorhead did a couple years ago, right? Like, go, you win a couple games, and I think obviously that helps with recruiting and stuff like that, but I think everybody would probably bank on saying that they want to be that, shot in the fire of a 16 seed, beating the one. I mean, SIUE completely trashed my bracket. I picked them to beat Houston. That whole side was absolutely so. If Baroni and those guys are listening, you let me down. I think I finished dead last in my family bracket, which being a basketball coach is like my son who's 8 beat me. You know what I mean? All IUE.
I swear, having ball knowledge makes you worse at brackets because you're like, no. Listen. I can walk you through how they're going to win this game.
I've seen Robert Morris put up 88 points on a team. They can for sure beat Alabama.
Hey, they almost did, man. They almost did.
So I did one. Obviously, my wife, my son, me and my son did one together. That's the one that won like the whole family thing. He was like, "Well, I don't know." I was like, "You're picking McNeese State. Like, you're picking McNeese, picking them." That one won, but it was just SIUE just killed me. So I mean, like I said, I also think that the NIT has changed, right? Of like what it was. I don't know if it's considered as prestigious as it once was.
Right.
When they made those changes.
It just keeps going down in like prestige.
And I mean, they made the changes for basically the high majors who are no longer participating in that, because they want to go to the Crown, or they're just like, hey man, our guys want to participate in postseason, they're done.
And like, we gotta fill out this roster. We just didn't make the tournament. Now we gotta find guys that are gonna get us there.
You had dudes tweeting that they were leaving in the locker room.
Yep.
Get lost in conference tournaments,
which is crazy. They had that thing.
DePaul had a couple, and DePaul ended up playing, and they were in the Crown, weren't they?
I don't remember.
DePaul played something postseason, and Jacob Meyer had tweeted in the locker room when they lost that he was out, he was done. And then you're still playing. Like, I think they went to the postseason thing with like they had 7 players. It's like, what are we doing? And I think 2 of them came back just to play in the tournament after they've already said that they weren't going to come back.
Shoot, I guess why not?
I think the answer has to be NCAA tournament or because it's the only way you'd get your players to actually want to participate.
Right. What are your thoughts on the 16 seed play-in games? Because you get the first round units if you win that game, but then obviously, you might not make might not make the round of 64. Do you like the 16 seeds playing in, or would you rather have them just automatically advance to the first round?
I mean, I think selfishly, because we'd probably be a 16, I'd say you want to just be in, not have the crapshoot of what it is. I think you can look at it possibly from the lens of, okay, you get to play one game, you get to play one game, you get maybe hot, you feel good, guys are confident, guys are loose, but I do think that it sucks a little bit that you're saying, okay, like, hey, we're an AQ,
Yeah.
we're an AQ. We should be in it, not being in a
Right.
play-in. And I do think like them doing, because there's a play in what for like the 8-9 now or whatever, or 11 or something like that.
Mhm.
Like I think it gives a little bit of flexibility for what it is, but I don't know. I feel if you're an AQ, you're an AQ, and
Right.
put other guys who are that large dudes, put them up against somebody.
Yeah, I subscribe to the thought that the every conference tournament winner should be they're in. Like
Right.
whether you're in from the Ohio Valley or from the ACC.
I
But
agree.
then if you're like a multi-bid league, then okay, that be your play in. So like the Missouri Valley, right? Always every year people have the idea of like they're going to be a two-bid league. They're going to be a two-bid league. Well, then put that second bid, that second team, they're the ones that are playing in the playing game because like okay, if you want to be here, you're going to have to just win another game to be in this field kind of thing. That's my thought.
Expand the tournament.
I mean, I do like it like an 11 this year was the game was between Texas and Xavier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, yeah, like okay, you're at large, you're near the end, right? But like, yeah, I mean, I think if you are an automatic qualifier, if that's what we're doing, and who's to say that the NCAA is not going to change that because that's what they did with the NIT, right? If you won your
Yep.
regular season, you were automatically invited.
Yep.
So I think it would suck. I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you. I think it would, if we got there and you lost before you even got to go, I think that would, I think that would suck. But
I'll tell
yeah,
you what, though, if you
want to be
guys
on that.
make it in and you guys go to Dayton, we'll be there. we're
Ready.
gonna make that drive. Now, if you guys are in and you're like in Portland,
Not going. Yeah, they'll ship us out West Coast because
I mean,
we're
unless you just booked a couple extra tickets
we can get
on
that done.
on the flight,
We
yeah.
can get that
I
done.
mean, I can
just
put
stick us next to Brad, and we'll cover the
I
whole
can
thing
put
with
on
him.
a headset and
You be our SID for the day.
there we go. It'll
He's
be perfect.
expendable.
No.
We can just shoot a couple tweets, take a couple photos. You guys will be on
Exactly.
roll in no time.
That's the dream. You know what? You guys go on a foreign tour.
You guys listen. All right, not official. All right, but Butler is official. All right, Wednesday opening week.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, got Indiana State. All right, first weekend in December. I think on the 6th. All right, then there's talk of Valparaiso game as well. So
That'd be so sweet.
we are doing the tour, but of course the one that's the closest, they still don't want to play us. So
That's okay.
tough.
At
Got to hop on
Valpo.
the bus.
You
Yeah.
guys would go up to Valpo.
Yep. And then I think we're going to restart. We've been in talks with Graves. I think we're going to add another 2 or another 4 to the Indiana State. So
Good.
Nice.
make that a recurring thing because I think it's been really good.
You mean you guys didn't win? You guys won, and he didn't immediately just say no, thanks. We'll just cancel them all.
Shoot, I think we were. I mean, I don't know if Graves would say this, but they ended up being really, really good right after we beat them. Changed his lineup a little bit, and obviously they went to the Bahamas and kind of figured it
You're
out.
welcome.
Yeah, we'll take credit for it.
Exactly. That's how I see it. But
Yeah.
that's really cool. Our goal is to have as many not many mid majors, as many Indiana teams playing each other as possible. I mean, obviously we get Indiana, Purdue, and then we get, all the Valley schools playing each other. But like, now that the Crossroads Classic is gone, you don't get that game anymore.
Like they should bring that back for like the lower ones, like a couple of the valleys, like get Evansville, get Valpo, get Ball State, get us, get Fort Wayne. I mean, you could do it. Now nobody's going to do it because we're not going to bring in enough revenue to the gate. But, we need a private sponsor to put forth the money. So once you guys get your NIL rolling,
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, once we're agents, then and then we'll like the little bit of the ins and outs. So like we'll bring you on, and you'll be our advisor.
all percentage. Yeah, I'll just skim off the top.
Listen, man, we'll be all right with it. We'll be all right. The state of basketball tournament in Indiana. I just said to Jaren, what did I say that last? Did I say this on the show last week or was this off the show? I said a 3-on-3 tournament, week of the 500 at Speedway High School. You can have one team from any college in the state of Indiana. Doesn't even have to be players. Like you could have you have
3 dudes off the intramural court.
Yeah, 3 dudes from Wabash playing your big 3 from last year.
Going against.
Yeah.
The guys from Wabash are hammered.
Yeah,
Going
a $500,000 pot. Winner take all. There we go. That's
for 500. You guys could probably host the actual game tournament. I think you need like 100 for that. So you guys are well above the asking price.
The 500. That's all. No,
listen. What? All right, we'll take 6% from our contracts.
There you go. You got to bump it up. You guys have big plans. That's what it's got to be.
All right,
man.
But
we're idea guys. It's just a matter of
Got to go out and execute.
Yeah,
and execute.
We need. Yeah. We'll get Milky. He can run our books. He'll be all right. We'll be a clean run program with just a little bit of embezzlement from you.
That's fine. Here's your other. You want to know the other big money one? All right. You got to get AI and you got to be, savvy. Okay. But you need to develop something AI that can go in and take every course catalog from every university, whether it be D1, D2, D3, NAI, JUCO. All right. And be able to cross reference with AI and be able to pull that into any university to see if those transfers or credits transfer over.
We've got
that's like $1 billion idea.
Yeah, that's
it really is.
The advisors, admissions counselors, just got so mad.
Then you don't have to get we have to contact this head of the department because AI is just gonna
just run it through the model.
Yeah, you just upload your transcripts and it's like, yep, this many credits,
easy. So get going on it, fellas.
All right. I don't know how to code, but I can. I might be able to just.
I do work at a software company, so
you know how to use
first and foremost. First and foremost, there's a lot of money in it.
Got legs.
I mean,
that one's my biggest one, but I'm far too dumb to do anything with it. So
my plan A is to. There's a lot of bad rep that comes out of the NCAA. People are always mad at the NCAA. They're always getting sued. So I'll be the spokesperson for the NCAA who goes out there and is like, we are reinstating the one-time transfer rule. Any questions? Out there and be like, this Adam Miller guy sucks. I'm like, yep, it's all right. And I'll be everywhere on Twitter just fielding all the hate. Just separate them a little bit.
It's all right.
They'll have to pay me a lot because my mental health will be horrible.
Yeah, just pay my medical bills.
Yeah.
Give me good insurance and
all you need.
Mm-hmm. We got some good plans. in the works. I like what we were noodling with here. It's good. It's good stuff. We are
take it to another level.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Podcast is small potatoes for where we're going.
That'll be like the side. That's like the side hustle.
That's the passion project. Heck yeah,
it's true.
Well, we're excited. Hopefully, we can see you guys multiple times. Try and get down to Evansville again. We'll see. But you stood us up last time, so you did give us a nice tour. You have very nice facilities. They're very, very nice facilities down there, I will say.
Had to go get T-shirts. That's why I couldn't go, I think.
And we didn't even get one.
No.
Couldn't find them,
Oh man.
I'm still waiting for my quarters by the way, unless a mailman stole it. You guys are about as slow as I am.
Man, you know what?
You guys are about as slow as I am with
you know what?
Sending stuff.
That's what you get. I'm just repaying the favor. You got about another 6 months. Then we'll talk.
It's gonna be another year.
I actually brought that up. We were talking when we launched our merch. We were like, okay, who all should we send stuff to? Like, okay, well, for sure Sprue, but we gotta make him wait.
Guys, I'm like a one-man show over here, all right? I don't have an equipment guy. I just go into a random closet, then I got to find a box. I mean, good Lord, you know what I mean? I don't have, I'm not the John Gruden packages. You guys are lucky you get a couple things. I don't have a whole, closet full of, I'll give you guys some size 17 KDs to rock around.
I'm a 13. I'm close.
We'll
13 up.
we'll add shelves to the wall. We'll just throw them up on the wall.
There we go. It'll be bigger than our heads.
G's brother, so Stan's brother was the first person up the ladder when they won the 1995 championship team. Wasn't on the team, wasn't a player, but got up there, cut the net, first guy. And he used to go in the locker room and he'd be like, "Hey man, you guys got any gear?" And people would be like, "Man, yeah, what size are you?" He's like, 12 and up. 12 and up. Fit anything. So I'll send you guys some 18s. I'll send you guys some 18s ball out it.
I respect it. That's
awesome. That is
awesome. I guess he's right. Like, I wear a 13. I could wear a 15.
Take what you can get.
Not what I prefer, but yeah.
Triple up the stocks.
Well, we'll have to, we'll definitely catch you in the team some places, some locations. We'll see. At Butler games in
Butler
Tyson.
will be good. It's on a Wednesday. The Butler one is that opening week.
Nice. That was the season starting on a Tuesday again?
No, it's Monday. I think it's the second or the third. I think we play on the 5th, I want to say.
So we go to IU Indy.
I'm hoping we get invited back to that one again, though.
And then we just stay in Indy
for 2 days.
For 2 days.
We live 2 hours away. It's not that far.
That's true. We just find a game on Tuesday.
Won't be in Indy because both the Indy teams are playing. One's playing on Monday.
Like maybe like Marion's probably playing or something.
Yeah, good point.
Get an NAI game.
Yeah, there we go. But we will. We'll try and get down. We'll see. We'll see what we can do. Might make you wait. Have those Tironi bucks. Have that pitcher waiting.
I'm gonna have the bucks ready. And $1 so you can get a duck for your car.
You'll probably be a little busier then, so we'll see.
Yeah, I do have. My wife we're 6 weeks out, so life will get a little crazier here soon. But we're excited.
You're gonna get to take some PTO.
10 days. Thank you, USI, for your trouble. we appreciate it. It'll work out good though. So we'll still have something to be able to do. So I'm not going to take the time until like school starts because we have our 8-year-old. So he'll still be able to come to practice during the summer and just be able to get out of the house. And
yeah.
You're going to be in the delivery room like, babe, I love you. And I'm excited for this child, but you will not believe who just called me. I got to get this commitment right now.
I pray that we're done by then. I'm hoping this week. We got, I think we got 3 on campus this week. So, which is better than we had 7 on campus a couple weeks ago. So was just eating every meal, and you would leave a meal and go to another meal with a different kid and then go to a different meal. No, you got to be done with this. It's too insane.
Last question, because I remembered it from the other day. I asked you. Cooper Flagg says he's coming. If Cooper Flagg says he's coming back for 1 year, and he'll go play at USI, but he wants $1 million. You think it gets done?
Yeah, I think Ron Romaine would. Ron would come up with it.
He'd make it happen.
I would get fired with my small salary. He'd save a couple dollars that way. Maybe we cut a couple athletic programs, give him his own building. We'll redesign the Orr Center for Cooper's house and then save some money that way as well. And then
also it's going to be Cooper Flagg Court.
Cooper Flagg Court, and then we'll change the name of Tironi's to Cooper's, lifetime Cooper dollars. So we're in it for the long run.
What? Just start calling it Coopersville at this point.
The west side we're gonna call Coopersville.
We become 2 cities.
Yeah, the other side could keep Evansville.
That'd be great.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Well, Coach, thanks for coming on. It's always a pleasure. Yep. We are excited to see you guys make the NCAA tournament. We got you guys in Purdue Fort Wayne. Got to
That's
get in
fun.
there. That's it. You guys are the last two.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me on always, man. Love chatting with you dudes, and everything you guys do for the state and the sport is greatly appreciated, man. And you guys know I love coming on this and talking with you guys, man. So anytime you guys need me, and if you need gear in the next 5 years, just let me know.
We'll let you know now. That way, in 5 years, we get it.
Taking snail mail to a whole new level.
I'll get a smaller jersey for you guys.
Like the
youth medium.
XL. I did tell him when I was like, hey, let me get your size. He was like, XL. I was like, youth XL.
Youth XL. I'm gonna give you guys like a triple XL from 1994.
Hey,
larger up. Large up.
Yeah, larger up. I fit everything. It's my size.
Yeah.
My size.
All right. Well, thanks, Coach.
All right.
Appreciate you guys, man.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Right, man. Always a good time having Coach Spru on.
Yeah. He's funny.
He's funny. He gave us some good ideas, how we're going to make our millions.
I won't tell him this, but he knows a thing or two about ball. He knows a thing or two about ball,
I wouldn't say this to his face. Friend.
Well, I said it earlier. I may have jumped the gun a little bit on it, but
you got to get confirmation these days. Sometimes they're just transactional. Right?
True.
You never know.
True.
Never know. But I don't know what we're doing next week, Jaren. And try and set something up. Might be Coach Brugan.
Who knows? The Pacers did win.
There we go.
So
one more.
I think in our description we
Pacers
talked about
5.
Eventually talking about the Pacers in the
Eastern Conference
final next week. Who knows? More ball to play. So
yep.
We'll
talk about something. We'll be back.
Yeah.
Or we won't. Because we're making 5% of NIL contracts.
If we just stop doing episodes, we won't say why, but you'll know why.
Our houses will be bigger. Our next studio will have stained glass walls of all the schools logos. That'd be pretty sweet.
Sick.
You'd be able to see nothing. You wouldn't have to see us at all.
It's okay. The price that I would
vision.
pay. Yeah, a small price to pay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think the clock is showing quadruple zeros, so it's for us to get out. Thanks for checking in on the State of Basketball podcast next week. And remember, in 49 states,
it's just basketball.